Good morning, or good afternoon if you're in the Midwest or on the East Coast. I'm Joey JayPing here, and this is the 111th episode of the RMR Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest by the name of Byron Staton. He is the Chief Operations Officer for Wondergrove Cannabis, which is a multi-state brand that does cultivation, consulting. You've helped build facilities and grow operations. You've helped build brands and companies. You've done a lot of different things. 40 years in cannabis, 14 in commercial. Everybody, this is a major guest on today's episode. But before we dive in to his interview today and learning about Wondergrove, I have to show love to our sponsor, Seedless Media. Visit seedless.media in your URL up here, and you guys can discover a full-service marketing agency with over 200 clients specializing in retail, SEO, programmatic ads, loyalty, text messaging, the entire gambit of marketing services that will make your company grow its revenue in the right direction. Now, the episode is not about Seedless. The episode is about you, Byron. Good morning, good afternoon. How you living?
Yeah,
where you at? Where you at in the world, bro?
I'm at my house in Boston. I'm here this week, taking a break after Benzinga and OCHBS, and
we've been busy.
Shows. We've been busy, man.
We've been busy.
It's a train ride, right? So
it's trade show season, brother.
It is trade show season. We'll see you at MJ BizCon. So I'm just chilling at home, man, trying to get a break for the week, and and glad to have. Thanks for bringing me on.
No, of course, man. I really appreciate you joining us today. As I said, we're 111 episodes in, Byron, and that's over 2 years and a few months of podcasts. Like literally 111 weeks. That's a long time, but that pales, bro. That pales in comparison to 40 years of cannabis, let alone 14 in commercial cannabis. If you think about it, 14 years from today, that puts us at 2010. I graduated high school in 2009. 2010, Byron's slinging weed. Byron's growing weed. He's in different medical markets. Byron, tell the people, how did you get involved with this 40 years ago? How did you get into commercial cannabis 15 years ago?
So look, it's, that's a long story, and, we got a little time on the podcast. So, we can just take it back. Look, I grew up in Ohio in the Midwest. 54 years ago now, showing my age. I learned to grow.
So the math at 14, you start. You're 14, man. You're doing weed things.
Yeah. So I tell everybody I've been practicing for commercial my whole life. When they brought commercial in 14 years ago, look, I'm like, I've been practicing forever to do this, right? So, my cousins taught me to grow in Ohio that long ago, and then look, I worked as an engineer for a great company forever, and just did the weed thing on the side just to support my love of cars and things that I did, right? And then back in 09, 08, I moved to Seattle, right? My kids were out there. I moved out to Seattle, and I was like, look, the scene's popping off here. I have nothing better to do than try to raise my children. And, we moved up by Mount Baker and started doing the whole deal up there. It was a whole medical market at that time. We were just trying to sling anything we could to keep all our kids eating, right?
Dude, Mount Baker is a beautiful area. I actually spent a Thanksgiving there, back when I was a freshman or sophomore in high school. And there's people don't know about Washington is there's glaciers, there's volcanoes, there's killer whales in the water. It's crazy out there. But more importantly than all of those cool things, there's great weed, right, Byron?
Yeah.
Man, is there great weed up there. And it's because of, they talk about the hippies. They talk about people that left to go up to Cascadia to get away from the rest of the world and all that good stuff, right? Just like Humboldt, right? But
right.
The reality is Washington has incredibly intelligent people there.
Super intelligent.
And tons of trees hiding everything.
Correct.
Right? So pretty easy to be able to go take a grow and pop it up in a neighborhood, a house, out in a farmland, up on some mountain or a plateau or something, and you're away from the city. Like, Seattle is drastically different when you're an hour away from the city.
Correct. That's what people don't understand. When you get an hour and a half outside Seattle, it's not Seattle anymore. I say it's Washington, then it's not Seattle, right?
100%.
just two different places. Seattle is Seattle and Washington is Washington, right?
And if you know the TAC, aka Tacoma, that ain't Seattle, and they don't want to be Seattle. Tacoma's Tacoma. Now,
correct.
Byron, you were up there in Mount Baker. That's in the north side of Washington. You're getting up there towards Canada. You're up there in Bellingham. People don't know about the right. People don't know about the culture of North Washington, closer to Canada. They don't know about BC Buds. They don't know about Mothership there in Bellingham, right? Which is arguably the most elite glassmakers in cannabis for over a decade, right?
Right.
Talk to me about starting there in that commercial community, and then fast forward, you then go into Massachusetts, you operate in Missouri, and now your latest endeavor is taking over Ohio.
We're back in Ohio where I grew up. My mom lives there. I feel like I'm at home. I live in Mass, but, Ohio is definitely where I grew up, right? So I'm definitely super excited to bring great genetics there from what I've learned on the West Coast, the partnerships I've created, the people I've met. There's a lot that goes into the whole cannabis commercial world that everybody doesn't get. If you don't have genetics, you don't have nothing. You know that as well as me. I can be all I can be, but without the real breeders and the real people out there, we would only be a grower.
Absolutely. Right? That's one thing that we saw in that medical market, right? Back in the day, was that back then in the medical market, the weed was only really as good as the weed was. There wasn't a brand association or, oh my God, that grower, that's the shit, right? It didn't happen like that until, and I will stand on this statement. We didn't get branded like that with hype and clout and, oh my God, this demand that surged beyond availability. It did not happen until cookies came around. 2012, 2013, Washington, the Bay Area, Oregon. Once those cookies cuts went up the West Coast, it was over because people would wait in line. They'd stay outside for these drops. They'd do anything they could, spend any dollar for a ticket to be able to go smoke cookies next to burner, right, back then.
Yeah, and before that, it was just genetics, right? You didn't say it was cookies or this brand or that brand or whoever it was. You'd just be like, oh, that BC Bud, or did you smoke that Grape 8? Did you smoke this? Did you smoke that? It was just
that Blue Dream was big back then. That Green Crack was big back then. Remember how White Widow, you was around for the White Widow craze, the Diesel crazes, the Haze crazes. Bro, you've been around for 40 years. You've seen every trend.
I still have all that stuff. And look, I tell everybody, the weed that we grew back then, it was hard to grow. I hear all the young guys complaining about growing now. Look, man, with this genetic world, it's easy, dude. It's not that hard to grow, okay? 40 years ago, you were lucky if a seed would even pop. You know what I mean? You'd be like, oh, wow. I got one, right? And then you're like, oh, is it a male? Is it a female? Oh, I got a female. Oh, now we're here. Now we're popping 200 seeds to see who's the best. And, when back in the day, we was just lucky to get a female.
That's crazy. I mean, the science was different back then. There was significantly less science. It wasn't, there's a lot of studies and agricultural education to create that foundational element, just to grow better. That just hasn't happened like that yet. But we're talking, adult use cannabis the last 15 years. We're talking breeding and strains. I've heard people say that they've kept things alive for 20, 30 years. Some of these moms, some of these clones.
I got a flow that's 20 years old, right? I've had her forever. I've grown her in multiple states. She is my girl. She's not a high THC.
That's your flow OG, correct?
Correct, right? She's 18, 19%, but you can smoke it every day. It never gets old. You know what I mean? Some of it, you're the second day you smoke it, you're like, that don't even really get me high anymore. So, trying to find strains like that is definitely the key to it all, right?
It's a constant battle of staying on top of trends, doing research, analyzing competition in the market, if that applies. Not everybody believes they have competition, even though there's multiple people growing the same stuff or pre-rolls, right? We just got asked the other day about our competition, right, for RMR, and I'm over here I just don't get it. I don't know what that means. We just all out here. I got a bunch of homies. You know what I'm saying? You're from Ohio. You do collaborations. You work with your friends. the goal for some people is not to be in every store, right? To not force it into every retailer, because not all weed performs in every city, state, market, or retail partner. It's a relationship thing. You have to build in the community. Byron, building communities, building businesses, creating opportunities for yourself. This is something you've been doing for a long time. You know, you talked a little bit about the day job that you had for a while, right? And then starting a family, where your kids were, moving across the country. You're not one to shy away from doors that you have to find a way to open to create those opportunities. And I'd like to dive in and peel back some of the trials and tribulations, some of these things that you had to go through while you were building Wondergrove in these different states. Because I have to sit here and say this. I live in California. I grew up in Washington. I spent a lot of money in both those states. And now I travel all over the place. And I can't sit here and say Wondergrove is this in that state or this in this state. And I think you've done that intentionally because you want to be recognized as a national quality brand, right? And I think you like traveling and having fun.
And look, I do love to travel and show up at the shows and do the whole thing. That's part of the relationship.
Building the brand, right? Building community.
Yeah, that's part of the relationships with the people. I don't think you can build a brand unless you have relationships with all the people, right? So, the only way there's a brand built is by people, right? You can't just hope it happens. You know what I mean? You have to go out there and like literally hit the streets. And when you said doors open, I one thing: doors don't open. You got to go kick them open, okay? Yeah. When you come from a place like me, look, they don't really want to open the door. You got to be very serious about what you're doing and have a really good plan, because, it's very competitive these days. And if you don't have a plan, you don't really have anything. So I think what's really made everything that I do special is, look, I go into it with a plan, right? I'm not growing weed just out of nowhere. I'm not just going, okay, I'm going to throw a brand at a store and hope it works. I'm going out building the relationships, going like, look, this brand will work if you have the right people, right? If you have the right stuff and you treat the people good and you give a fair price. Everybody goes, what's a fair price? Because that's the big discussion these days, fair price for weed, right? I look, in order to run a business, there has to be a price point. It has to sell for you. You got to close the business down. I tell everybody, look, I just want to give it to the people for a fair price. I don't make, you do have to make a company survive, right? And I think that's what some people don't even get in the world, right?
I think people often overlook what it takes. Like they see Nike and they don't know what it took for Nike to get there. You know what I mean? They don't know about the bank loans and the bridging, and they don't know about the scandals or the employee culture, or they don't know about the overseas this. They just see Nike in a great shoe, and they know that it helps them hit that jump shot. You know what I'm saying? And cross some people up. The weed. I'm smoking right now. I'm smoking Lil Baby's weed. I'm smoking rapper weed here in Cali. The nugs, you saw it. How disappointing is that? Not everybody has the same intentions for the brands and for the products that they put in these brands, right?
Right.
What would you say really represent, like, what let me reverse the words here. What would you say that Wondergrove really represents as a cannabis brand? Because I know you're a flower guy. I know you smoke. What would you say Wondergrove represents in terms of flower, and then any of these other products that you guys create as well?
And look, if you know me, you know me, okay? I'm a flower guy. That's what I do. That's what I lay my fame on, is like, look, I just want to grow good flower. It all starts with good flower. Even if you're making cartridges or rosins or hashes or whatever, it all starts with a good flower, okay? Like me,
Yep.
I give it all to the breeders and everybody that's done the work, without really good flower, I don't think you have a foundation. I built my career on the foundation part of it, just being flower. I'm very old school, so we know I wasn't going into like all the crazier items other than flower was going to be my full time. And I think that's what made me more successful, is just staying very focused on what I do and not really trying to jump from one thing to another thing, or like, or hearsay, or like, are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? Or you're going to work with this? You're going to know, look, I'm going to stay with flower and I'm going to start there and I'm going to build a reputation behind that. And I'm going to work with some of the greatest people in the industry. And, and just stick to the game, right?
What would you say with hearing that context there about your desire to really focus on what you're passionate about, but also what you excel in, right? I think I mean, you got kids, parents, my parents pushed me to do a variety of things, and I never became great at any one of them. It's not the fault of parents, it's to fault distractions, it's to fault
Correct.
squirrel, this, that, sports,
Correct.
girls, school, like what you can only be great at so many things, right? I find it really interesting that with your focus on being great at what you know, which is flower, greenhouse, indoor, these varieties of growing in those methodologies, that you didn't choose to be great in any of those one states that you've operated in, right? And I don't say that the weed wasn't great, but that the brand isn't known the way Connected and Alien Labs is, or Kiva in a state, or whatever the clout that people perceive is, right? Because again, it goes back to what I was saying. When I think of Wondergrove, I think of this national cannabis brand that I've seen in multiple states. I don't always know where and when I can get it, but I do know that when I can, it's going to be curated or grown by Byron, and it's going to be good enough for him. But that's because I know you, right? And so but that's not the way it is for everybody else. That's just a consumer, right? Or that's even just a retail buyer out there. So the question that I have for you is, with your focus on cannabis flower versus all these other types, why not go deep in Missouri? Why not go deep in Mass where you live, right? And really own one of those markets and then still expand. What was the thought process behind that?
So, I think that's coming soon to a place near you, right? So, I mean, look, I wrote the plan down long ago, 2012, and it's played out just how I wanted it to play. And it wasn't a fast game, okay? It was a very long chess game.
DMC, man, it's a marathon.
It is yeah, dude, look, I'm not done yet, right? So, like you said, everybody knows when you do get it from me, it came from my heart, right?
Yeah.
Like, look, if I don't approve it, it don't go in the package. That's just the way it is, okay? Everybody knows, like, Wondergrove is Wondergrove and Byron is, I have a career too, right? So, and everybody knows if the name goes with the brand, that's just how it works, right? So, look, I have the same cure guy I've had for a long time. I have the same people looking after my flower all the time. I look at it and go, that don't go in a jar. That has to go somewhere else, right? Like, so I think with building the brand, I think we're going to get there in the years to come. I think cannabis right now is just opening up for real people to come, and not so much the money you needed to have in it before to get in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think it's coming around, and hopefully I can do big things in the next couple of years.
As we transition to you being in Ohio, you have a facility. It was just approved. You're waiting on the paperwork. We were there right after in like the 24 to 48 hours. I think I saw you within 24 hours of the inspection, and we were at your facility within 48 to 72 hours after they were there. We walked around. My guy, you have a compound. You're in the middle of nowhere, Marion, Ohio, right? It's cornfields, it's agriculture. I saw more tractors on the road than I saw cars.
For sure.
Right? During the 3-hour drive to where you were. Right. And you mentioned that you've got a great relationship or a good relationship with the people around you because that's the community. You mentioned you had to speak to the police and the fire department and the local authorities and just straight up teach them every single aspect about what it is you were doing and why. And also, even though it's legal by the powers of like the state's government, the local government, they just really didn't get it at first, right?
And look, Ohio still doesn't have it yet, okay? We know they have their struggles right now in that market. That market will be great for years to come. Massachusetts, when I got here, was in 2016. It was rough. You know what I mean? Now it's oversaturated and there's good weed everywhere. And it's basically a whole different scene than it was in 2016. You know what I mean? In 2016, you kind of cornered the market and you had everything made. Now, look, it's compressing. People are shifting money around. Like, businesses are going to close. Brands are going to leave. I think it's a still great market because I live here now and I've been here since 2016 and everybody knows me. Look, So when you talk about moving market to market, I think like moving market to market and being national is great, but really having a connection to where you are is
That's going to
great.
be the longevity play, right?
It's
It's
the
always going to
longevity.
be based on the relationships from a longevity standpoint.
Correct. And I think, some guys just jump ahead of them and be like, well, I want this national brand when you haven't even built your local community yet. Right. So let's worry about the people you got in front of you and not the people that's like outside your living area. Right.
No, that's huge. And so let's talk a little bit about these areas that you've operated in. Missouri, you were there last year. Tell me the story about Wondergrove Cannabis in Missouri. What was that like? How many years? How long? What did you accomplish while you were there? What was that like?
Look, I was in that Missouri market only 13 months. I went there, a building already opened up, flipped it around, brung Wondergrove in, brung a couple big brands in. Look, grew some really good weed. Look, built a ton of relationships there. Like, give love to Missouri. There's a lot of good people that I did business with there. They still follow me. They still support me. I still support them. I do anything for them. They do anything for me. But we sold that after 13 months. We did a lot of shows there. We did like Burner and Wiz on 420 in St. Louis. We did a Wu-Tang kind of private party with Czarface and Inspector Deck, and like we did all kinds of cool, fun things there. And like, look, Wondergrove came and went, and it was a great market for us. And look, we sold that place in 13 months, and we wanted to concentrate on Ohio in general because it's such a huge market. So
Mm-hmm.
look, we left Missouri and went straight to Ohio.
So one thing that I gathered reading between the lines and listening here is that, and because I've seen this as a pattern, you have this ability, you have the experience, the know-how, and not more importantly, but in addition to that, you have the relationships to be able to identify someone's shitty situation, whether it's a bad business, they're not really profitable, maybe they're going backwards, maybe the investors reach out because they're not happy with the operators. But either way, however it comes about, you have this uncanny ability because of the 40 years, because of the 15 in commercial, to help a shitty cannabis business operationally, financially, product wise, to take it from the perfect storm or the worst
And there's plenty of them.
and turn it around. And there's not one way to go about that, but you have identified a way to help that happen and at least put not just a band-aid, but allow that wound to heal to get to that next phase. Because you said we turned that place around, brought some brands in, my brand, grew some really good weed, and then we sold that shit in 13 months. That's Missouri, right? And talking in person when we were out there in Ohio, I can't help but notice that you have been helping failing businesses at various points throughout your career doing things like this. Whether you sell it or not, whatever. But in that Missouri situation, you helped a backwards ass company improve their quality, bring brands in, you attracted opportunity, you guys capitalized on that opportunity, you executed, and then you sold it, which helps that entire situation close a chapter and get to the next one, right?
I think actually I just made too much noise there and they wanted me out of Missouri, bro.
Well, like Missouri's a tough market. We're going to be there here for MJ Unpacked in a couple weeks. We're taking tours of a couple multi-state brands, Illicit, C3, Shangri-La. I know Show Me Organics, I believe, is a local one there, but it's an exciting opportunity to check out what's going on and get a better understanding of what's been happening there the last few years. And so I just found it interesting. Again, you had a very particular experience there. I think I wanted to shine some light on your abilities to turn cannabis businesses around. What's it been like for you in Massachusetts? You said you've been there since 2016. Tell me a little bit about that situation for you there and what's going on there for Wondergrove in Mass.
So that story is super funny because, when I left the West Coast to come out here, I got called out here in 16 to a big MSO to kind of start a new building, and nobody'd ever done it on the East Coast. And it was a pretty high end building and, 60 million plus, to build out. And look, they called me from out there. All my friends on the West Coast, you know what they said? What, you going to be a trader? And I'm like, A trader, really? You gonna call me? I'm old, man. What are you gonna call me a trader for? So look, I came out here. Everybody thought I was tradering and taking genetics to places they wasn't supposed to go. And I said, look, I'm here about to share in the future, right? And I'm all about that. So look, I came out here with a learning attitude that I was going to teach more than hurt. And look, now all my homies in California, everybody's out there. They're all like, good move, dude. Okay. So, you're a trader in the beginning.
You had the Wondergrove crystal ball back in the day.
Yeah, I don't know about that, man. It's just opportunities knock, right? And you either sit on the couch or get off your ass and go get it, right?
I think that's huge. I mean, there was this fork in the road a few years ago, and I call it COVID, right? Where you either chose to double, triple, quadruple down in the one markets you were in or the few markets you were in, or you chose to continue expanding or going on I call it the world domination effect, because COVID did open up legal cannabis in a lot of places. It sped things up pretty drastically, exponentially in ways. Massachusetts, it only took a few years, just like Washington and the legal market there, and Oregon and Colorado. It only took a couple years, like 2, for the market to crash and suffocate itself. And then to start repeating that cycle, right? Too much canopy, not enough funding for retailers to really do what they needed to do. The cash flow problems, not the stopping of paying vendors, the expansion progress, to then have expansion not really help from a revenue generating standpoint because there's just not that many people in some of these states, right? Sure. Ultimately, there becomes a saturation of materials. That's canopy, flower, raw product. You have a limited number of dispensaries because you can't just pop up dispensaries all over the place like barbershops and Starbucks and McDonald's.
And nationally only allowed 3 per company, right?
So then you have cannabis specific rules like that, correct, where you can only stack 3 locations. I can have as many McDonald's. You could have as many McDonald's as you want, Mr. Successful Businessman, but you can only have 3 dispensaries, right?
In the whole state.
In the whole state. So it's just like this cannabis situation, this industry there in Mass. It's just like some of these other ones where it was set up to fail in some ways. And you really had to have a different mindset, a particular style of business. And I would say you had to have you had to have cash from a regular business succeeding, restaurants, fucking car washers, whatever, laundromats, I don't care. You just had to have money from a regular business to help sustain you, because the money that you could borrow is not friendly and conducive to cannabis taxation, right?
And look, I told everybody asks why I don't own my own yet. We're not there, it wasn't built for guys like me to jump in the beginning. I think it's getting more like that every day. And like, look, we're making a plan for sure. But it wasn't made for us to just jump in. It was made to fail. If you look at the numbers and the taxation and everything that goes with it, it was made to fail, dude. They didn't want to legalize it, okay? But like when the people vote, just like Ohio, the people voted it. And look, here we go, right?
Right.
And then I think relationships and the best products, just like that always does the best, consistency, right?
So in terms of your guys' products for Wondergrove, where can people physically buy Wondergrove products at today in America?
So nowhere. So when we sold Missouri, it's over, right? So all the new stuff's coming out in Ohio now. Everything new, everything we kind of like when we left Missouri, we was like, we are going to lay all of our concentration only on Ohio because Ohio's such a big market and there's so many people and, there's so much hype around it right now. And, we'll see how the hype works out. There was hype around everywhere in the beginning. So,
the hype is real. They sold a ton of weed already since it went rec, and they don't even have pre-rolls in some of these other categories that other states have. And so not only is money being left on the table, tax dollars are being left on the table, correct, right? Customers that don't know how to roll up flour. I don't think can you guys have flour in Ohio yet?
Yeah, you can have flour, but it's 2.83, so it's
that's right. They sell it in tenths. That's right. So the market, they sell it in tenths. They can only buy up to 2.83 grams. That's your daily limit for flour in Ohio, which is crazy because you could buy an ounce at multiple places in California if you wanted.
So you can still buy an ounce, but they call that 2.83 is the daily limit, and you can buy up to like 30 days or whatever they made it now, right? So I think it's up to an ounce and a half or something, but like.
So the daily limit is that, but you can buy 30 days in one visit.
Yeah, so I think they did it like trying to like transform medical rules and commercial rules and have.
Now I'm not going to quote you on this and hold you to this
you will.
Word for word, but let me just speak to the legislators out there. What? That's so confusing.
It is.
Why not match the adult use states that are surrounding you? Give them the 28 grams, give them the 7 grams of concentrate, give them the ounces of weight in edibles and beverages. And if there's a medical card, then let us have higher doses and no taxes for if it's truly medical, right? It's as simple as that. Why do they got to make this so difficult, man? Anyways, can't buy Wondergrove anywhere except soon in Ohio. Let's focus now and pivot the conversation to Ohio.
Releasing everything in Ohio.
Mass is where you live. Mass is the homies. Is where you live. Missouri, you built it. You came in, saved the day. You sold it. Anybody that wants you to come in, anybody that has a failing business that doesn't know celebrities or doesn't know other good local proven operators, people like Old Pal, people like Wiz Khalifa, the Khalifa, all the, whoever it is, Jim Belushi, whoever it is, right? You guys should give Byron a call if you need some help saving your business. That's just a fact. I'm going to throw it out there. Then moving forward to Ohio
already, bro.
Moving forward to Ohio, I visited the facility. There was a pond. You had these hippopotamus. It was like you were the Ohio Escobar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, for those watching, there really wasn't hippos, but there was fish in this pond, and some of those suckers were big. So then there was also some large frogs. It was a beautiful experience, man. The farm was huge. You had, how many bays did you have?
So it's a 7-bay place,
Yep.
But we got one. We have 4 giant flower rooms, right?
Yeah.
Look, I don't do small rooms anymore. Like if you're gonna grow it, you're gonna grow it, right? So, I got 5,000-foot bays in my place. I only have 4 flower rooms. They're ginormous. You saw them. Total different concept. Yeah. So, we are bringing all the big brands to Ohio. So Wiz Khalifa's with us in Ohio. We got Khalifa, all the Khalifa Kush, Khalifa Mints, Baby Turtle, all the new stuff. So we'll be.
And then you also have Jim Belushi coming.
Still got Belushi. Belushi and I have a really good relationship. You know what I mean? Like we're bringing the brands to there. He'll probably come out and visit Ohio because he's actually from Akron. So
that's exciting.
Jim's a great guy. He'll do a lot of good things in the state too, and hopefully we'll just give back to where we come from, right?
And you have your product line coming. You mentioned earlier the Flow OG. I think are you working with Old Pal on this project or no?
No, I was with Old Pal in Missouri.
That's right.
They're with another great partner in Ohio. I mean, Rusty.
Shout out to Rusty. Shout out to, I forget his partner's name. Who's his partner's name? Do you remember?
Carter.
Yeah. Yes. So shout out to their entire team. Big fans of Old Pal. They do great work. They inspired us to do some things in our realm here in Cali last year. So
Rusty's a great dude.
So 5,000 square foot in these bays. You got how many plants are going to be in your rooms, and
they're like
what does that look like?
So look, 2,000 plants per room. We'll bring in 500 pounds every 2 weeks into the Ohio market. That's the plan going in. We built a really, I would call it a different approach on the weed industry. It's the same as I did in Massachusetts, but for a lot of people, it's kind of a different approach. We was very successful in the mass market for 6 years in an open air greenhouse, right? We built another one in Ohio. I'm from there originally. Look, I grew outdoor there my whole life.
Let's not gloss over open air greenhouse. I think there's people on LinkedIn that are potential blazer wearers, Chads and Karens. Shout out to anybody named Karen. I apologize. But the reality is I don't think they know cannabis well enough to know what an open air greenhouse is. Now, obviously the word is open air, but greenhouses are typically enclosed. So can you walk me through what that is and the difference between the two?
So, most people like to control
these variables.
Yeah, well, let's just talk about like where we come from, right? So we grew weed outside in the beginning of when we all started, anyways, right? And then we went in this thing called indoor, for one reason. Why was the reason we went indoor? We went
We were
indoor
hiding.
we were hiding from the police, man. You know what I mean? That was the biggest deal with growing indoor. It wasn't cost effective. Electricity bills were outrageous. Uh, AC was crazy. You know what I mean? It just like came into all this cost, but we were hiding. Now that we're not hiding anymore, probably the last 7 years, 8 years, pretty strict. I've done open air greenhouses. I did a couple indoors in between those, but look, when everybody says the quality difference or this and that, like, look, open air greenhouse, I have the same quality as I had indoor, little trickier to run because look, there's no AC and there's no hiding from the heat, right? So that's a very tricky world. But look, it's still a closed building. It don't get rained on, and it just has fresh air going through it just so it don't stay stagnant, right?
And it's still full spectrum lighting because you have a combination of lights, right? And the greenhouse effect of just the pure Ohio sun.
Yeah, and I think most people get mixed up with how I do it just because, like, look, it's a greenhouse, and they're like, oh, you got supplemental light. Oh, no, I have lots of light, right? So I don't want just supplemental for a greenhouse. I want a lot of light to produce really good flower, right?
Yeah.
Most people on a greenhouse will dim down on the light or take a lot of the light out of the room to save money, but then they're playing with quality. And that's kind of where I found the happy medium between light and good quality and trying to grow indoor without air conditioning and dehues, right?
From a COA perspective, and again, certificate analysis, COA, it would be quite interesting to see if the California indoor FloraCal Khalifa Kush, how it holds up to a super supplemented lighting, right?
Can't wait to see it.
Mix light grow
Right.
that utilizes indoor tech with classic greenhouse agriculture methodology, right?
Correct.
And with somebody who's grown in both styles in multiple markets with genetics of that caliber. Because somebody that grows indoor in Cali for sure is not going to be great at growing greenhouse.
Sure.
They're great at the one style.
They are. And
especially in California. I'm not going to speak for all 10 million growers or 10,000 growers. Like I'm sure there's 900, but I'm sure there's 9,000 of them plus that cannot grow in 2 or 3 different styles.
Right.
Like you just don't. If you're growing to hide, you're growing to hide. If you're growing to grow outdoors because you live in a region with terroirs and all that stuff, that's different. That's a whole different world. I literally can only name in my head 2 or 3 indoor grows up that are on the adult use market in California, and their flower never even makes it down to Southern California. It stays in the small batch world just up there. And it's a entirely different game. So 2,000 plants a room. You're running the Khalifa genetics. That's exciting. One of those Kush cuts came from Burner, so that's dope, right? One of the original Kush cuts came from them. I believe the Menthol is one of those Familia types of strains in his line. I love that cut of Kush. I love any of the Kushes that is high in eucalyptol and camphor. Those are those icy terps, y'all, and it's only in certain strains. Jim Belushi, I know I want to, and I could be wrong. I want to say he initially launched in Oregon with this stuff out there.
He did. Yep, that's exactly right. So
does that mean he's got a lot of Oregon genetics that's coming your way, or what?
All the genetics are coming from the West, like that, right? So they all came straight out of tissue too, for Khalifa and Belushi. So straight from.
Can you say who the tissue cultures came from?
No, I don't think I can. I'd have.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. If I could, I'd share it.
I just wanted to see if it was the homies.
Yeah, I got you. So a lot of great strains. I mean, look, with Belushi, we probably got like 6 or 8 strains, right?
Wow.
So a lot of stuff coming. I'll announce it soon on LinkedIn, or I'm sure you and I will talk about it.
Yeah, we'll chat about that. We'll help make some hype for that because I'm interested in too. When I was back in Washington, I remember feeling. I would get these feelings of excitement, is what I want to say. That joint is hitting me. I would get these feelings of excitement when I would discover strains that had a regional attachment. And the reason why is because when you're growing up here in America, you're taught that Mexican food is better if it's from Mexico and it's authentic, right? Asian food better if it's from Chinese people or if it's from Japanese people versus just having regular people cooking it, right? That's what we're taught, right? For better or for worse, that's what we think. Now, I remember getting stuff like Oregon Silver Haze. I remember getting stuff like I saw an Oregon Thunderfuck one time. I remember there was like an Oregon Goat, and then there was like another Oregon Cheese. Like people were just coming out with these different regional grow stuff because they bred stuff and they bred it in this region, so they felt like now it was special and custom to that region, right? Coming out of Oregon, for those of you guys that don't know, one of the best genetics groups there is Archive, and with the Moonbow. And so for anybody that ever goes into Portland, drive down to the Archive Genetics dispensary and go buy the Moonbow pre-roll. Just see what a really good pre-roll actually is like in your life, and also buy their flower, and you guys will experience that. Now, circling back to Wondergrove, you had the Flow OG coming for you. What are some of your other favorite strains that you can talk about for Wondergrove specifically?
Look, original G13 coming out straight from a Neville's cut, right? So that's I've never done it commercially. I've done it black market for a long, long time, and I've never released it commercially into any market. I grew it in Missouri and didn't really release it. I think the other owner took over that genetic because I left it in that building, right? We have it in Ohio now. We're bringing it out, bringing that flow out. Bringing my I have a wedding cake that'll split your mind, right? So I tell everybody it'll just split your wig open, right? Every time. So, everybody's kind of tired of the cakes, and really I am too, but like, look, it's just one of those I have to bring out, right?
Yeah.
I got a gas face coming out, so everybody wants a little gas in their life, especially Ohio. I'm trying to give Ohio just a different feel from what they've had. There is a lot of regional strains there that like, maybe I can do some work with those in the near future. We'll see what happens in the state.
One thing I really like about what you're going to offer is that it's not just a bunch of runts, lemon cherry gelatos, permanent markers, and all that kind of stuff. We obviously get a lot of those in various places,
right?
And I still want that. Don't get me wrong, but if I want to go buy, I'm dangerous, bro. I go shopping and buy my shoes at the outlets, right? I was telling you we're shoe guys, right?
Right.
I go buy my shoes at outlets, but now they're half price, so I got to walk out with two. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing, bro. I go to these places, I go to these markets. I want to buy weed. I want to get two strains. I want to try their sativa and see what that's like for them. See what them fruits and sours is like, and I also want to try some gas or some OG Kush or some shit, so I can see what it's like when they grow some shit. That's what I smoke on the regular. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's super exciting. Now, we are approaching 45 minutes on the show, so before we get you out of here, I want to touch on a couple more things. Let me go ahead and make sure I'm not missing any of the questions that I really wanted to get you. The two things was establishing strong partnerships and what makes Wondergrove special. I think both of those go hand in hand. Identifying good partnerships and establishing strong partnerships, but while also bringing something special to the table yourself with Wondergrove. Can you talk to me a little bit about how important it has been for you to identify these strong relationships for partners in these states, not owning licenses, but having access to buildings? I mean, your facility is huge, right? And Missouri is nothing to scoff at either. Massachusetts has beautiful, perfect facilities there too, custom built, brand new places. You're not growing in garages in Washington anymore, right?
For sure.
So what has it been like for you, or what do you look for in these strong partnerships? And the second part to that is, what does Wondergrove really bring to the table that makes these situations special?
So the one thing is the connection to the people. Like my connection to the people, you know who I am, Joey. Look, I go everywhere. I ain't too big. I talk to everybody. I want to teach what I have known. I want to share my information. I want to do all great things in the world for the people, right? So, I want to bring good weed at a reasonable price and do really good things for everybody in the communities, right? So, some people just stand on a soapbox and say that, I mean it, right? I tell everybody my relationships over 14 years in commercial cannabis, you know how this world is. If if you was doing it wrong, you wouldn't be here as long as I've been here. Okay.
Right.
They just wouldn't have you. You know, I mean, a lot of people's been ran out of the business. We know that, right? Like, it's hard to keep friends this long.
No, that's huge. I think that perspective is incredibly valuable. I think it's a matter of finding like-minded people that understand you, your work ethic, and this value that you do ultimately bring to these relationships, right?
Right.
That's huge. Hey, y'all, man, we've been spending some good time today. Wondergrove Cannabis is in the building. I got my guy Byron Staton here representing Massachusetts. He's in Ohio. That's where y'all are going to be able to buy Wondergrove Cannabis here soon. Khalifa Kush here soon. The Jim Belushi and the Belushi Farms. That's going to be an exciting thing, so make sure you guys tap in. Byron, do you have anything you want to share with the people before we get you out of here?
Hey, man, I appreciate everybody's time. Hit me up on Instagram, Grow Into a Legend.
What's the website for Wondergrove so they can check you guys out?
www.wondergrovecannabis.com.
Easy enough. Hey, y'all, this was the 111th episode of the RMR Podcast. I'm Joey JayPing. This guy here is the CEO of Wondergrove Cannabis, Byron Staton. We just recently toured his facility there. It was an amazing time. We're going to have a video out for you guys here over the next couple of weeks and months, so make sure you guys tap in. We got a lot of North American Weed Tour content. Big shout out to our sponsor, Seedless Media. Visit seedless.media. In your URL, you do not need a www. If you guys need any marketing, my guy Steve is the CEO. He tapped in. He's been supporting all these podcasts, and it allows us to be a platform for brands and people, retailers such as Byron. So thank you to Steve and the Seedless team. For now, though, everybody, it's hump day. It's Wednesday. We're going to get back on the grind. The plants don't stop growing, and the content doesn't make itself. So we will